everyone, it's Victoria. I'm back again. It's Monday today, and I took a break yesterday and tried to stay off of online stuff a little bit. I'm not really that used to being online as much as I have been in the last 3 weeks. As you all know, I moved my yoga and belly dance studio, Hypnique studio, to completely virtual in just the last 3 weeks. And so every day I am connected to more technology than I ever have been in my life. And honestly, it was a little bit frightening too, because I wouldn't have called technology one of my skill sets. However, it is fast becoming something that I'm getting more adept at, and I'm also truly grateful to have it because it allows me to keep connecting with people I know and also people that I don't know as well that I'm getting to meet through this time. So we've been talking in these lives over the end of last week and now today about the fact that we are creating new neural pathways. And one of the things that I have said is that we're always creating new neural pathways anytime we try something new. So it's not that just right now all of a sudden you're making them. It's actually happening all the time for us anytime we're exposed to something new, because we have to shift and balance because something's different. And during this time that we are all in, though, where so many things are new, we have a real opportunity to more consciously create these new neural pathways. So I had been drawing you all the gingerbread, and I erased it on Saturday, and we started again because Saturday I talked a little bit about our physical body and how important that can be to create new neural pathways, and also to help our nervous system to come back to a place of feeling calm. And I didn't mention this, but I wanted to point it out with the physical body too. When we do movement for an extended period of time, we also release things like serotonin, which is one of the neurotransmitters for our brain, so that we have sensations of feeling lifted, even happy. So this is a huge thing right now. When we have other things coming at us that could feel stressful, to find those ways that we can be lifted is very powerful. So I did want to mention that too about the physical body. When we can move it in ways that feel good to us, then we actually are producing in our brains more serotonin, which is going to help you feel better too. Like literally you will say, I feel better after that. And I think that's some of the things that some people that I've been talking to are noticing, is that when they're putting back that movement in their lives, it's very helpful. Or even going outside and taking a walk if you're able. I thought I was going to have to do this live inside because it was pouring like crazy out here. And the sun's shining now though. So I'm out on my lovely patio again. So I'm going to draw a little bit, and you'll see I have a new painting behind me today to show you because it's going to be part of what I'm going to talk about today. So in review, I have our physical self on our gingerbread person. We've also talked a good bit about, the mind. And I'll keep referring back to that part too, the mental part of ourself. This is the part of us that we're consciously moving our focus and our awareness to these things that can help us create new neural pathways in a way that feels positive, like positive growth right now. Then we also talked some on Saturday about the emotional part of ourselves. And I did that as the heart. We're going to color that in green. And the reason why is because that's the color it is with the chakras. And so that's how I represent it. And on Saturday, we talked a lot about moving from some of those emotional states that could be something like anxiety, or an emotional state of feeling sad often, or even emotional state of feeling angry, frustrated, and hurt a lot, moving from those states into a state of joy, peace, contentedness. And then we talked about the physical body as well. So, and remember, none of these we can't separate any of these parts. So that's why I'm continuing to remind you of this, or the reason why I'm continuing to remind you of this is anytime you're working with any part of your whole self, you're always impacting the rest of you. So if I'm choosing to listen more to my body, like we talked about on Saturday, mindfully eating, mindfully moving, listening to my body on what it needs and also what it doesn't need. It might be telling me, it doesn't want something by the reaction I'm having to it. And that could be food, but it also could be, a certain type of movement. Maybe, I think I might have told you all, I ran for many, many, many years. And then last year I ran in April. Last year in April I ran. And I ran a big race that was awesome and fun, and I had a great time, but I actually felt like my body needed a break from the running. And so I've been giving it a break from the running for a year, and it's April now, and most of the time if I'm doing my outdoor movement, it's usually walking. So listening to our bodies, if that's what we chose to do, it's still going to impact the other areas of ourself. And I think that that's what's really cool about this. You can wake up in one area and it affects everything else. Now, we're going to talk about two parts a little bit today. We're going to talk about, I put that at the solar plexus area. We're going to talk about the intuition or the spiritual part of ourselves. And I also call this our true self. So this is the part of us that is always speaking to you within. We don't, at certain times in our life, we may not hear it as clearly. And so when we pay attention more to that voice within, we begin to get really clear messages on how to actually function in some of these other areas of the whole self. So if you want to consider that the voice within, that's another way to call it, is speaking to you all the time. One of the ways, and now we're going to go back to the emotions, one of the ways that you're going to get cues is how you feel emotionally. So I think that's a really neat thing. That's why I called our emotions, our feelings, our GPS, like a GPS, like when you're driving. I always laugh because I don't know what I did before GPS. I probably just wandered aimlessly around through life until I found where I was going. But often when I'm trying to follow my GPS, I'll miss a turn, and I always think it's funny because, my GPS is a woman. I've never changed the voice on it, so it's whatever it came with. And she just keeps telling me over and over how to get back to where I told her I wanted to go in the first place. And I might miss the next turn, or I can't get across 19, or whatever the case may be. Yet she just continues to tell me in the same voice how to get back on track. That's the way I look at our true self speaking to us through the emotions. It's going to keep giving you an emotion or feeling to give you information. And then sometimes we don't pay attention to those. And again, I've told you this already, but I'm going to say it again for those that maybe didn't hear it. It's okay if you're not listening at certain points and that you put those emotions over in a box somewhere because you were doing that for purpose. Sometimes we aren't able to look at all that stuff and handle it and deal with it. It's better to stay sane, basically, and function, right? So when you have things come up and you say, whoa, wow, I can't believe I did that for so long. And I'm speaking for myself. I know I felt that way at times. Like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I didn't see what was going on for so many years. Well, there was a purpose for that. And I've learned to forgive, let go, recognizing there's actually, the ritual of forgiveness is very important, especially forgiving ourselves. But truly, the mistakes the things we call mistakes, they happened for reasons Many times we will see that later on and just know that we did it the best way we could have done it at that moment in time. When we're aware of it, and this is one of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou, really amazing woman, and I feel like still teaches us from beyond. She talks about when we know better, then we can choose to do better. And that's the way I see this, is sometimes we do start to hear that voice within a little bit louder, and we start to be able to make these changes. And like we've talked about, this may be one of those times that's happening for you, because maybe you have had more time to think about things in a new way. Or maybe certain things have frustrated you that you never noticed before. So we're having some time that we can look at those things if we choose to. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the inner voice and how we might be able to hear that in different ways. And then we're also going to talk about the energetic self today. So I'll draw the energy body in a moment. One of the reasons why I brought out the painting that I brought out today, and I think you can see it pretty well from here, from where it is, but I'll hold it up for just a moment. It's pretty big. This is one I worked on for about, well, interesting, about 9 months. Kind of an interesting number for those of you that have given birth before. There's a lot of significance to the painting. There's a few pieces in it that I'm going to talk about with you, and it's also a good representation of how I see the energy system too, and I'll talk about that in a moment. The figure that you see, the woman that you see, is my interpretation of white buffalo calf woman, and there are some amazing Lakota, but also other tribes, legends about white buffalo calf woman and teachings and prophecies that came from those legends. And she was considered a guide. I'm not going to go into all the details of her, but truly, if you're interested, it's very cool to look up. She was a guide, considered a spirit guide to the Lakotas, and then again, many other tribes actually. They might have had different names for her, but many other North American tribes. And she was considered to be a guide that did a few different things. One of the things that she did was come and teach sacred rituals to the tribe during a time that they were in dire straits. And so I think that that's really powerful right now. Things were not going well, basically, for the Lakotas. They didn't know what was going to happen. She came and stayed with them, according to the legends and prophecies, for a period of time, and taught them about different sacred rituals. One of the ones that always speaks out to me is she talked to them about coming into harmony as male and female and being balanced. And one of the things that is a ritual and a tool that comes out of her teachings for the Lakotas is a peace pipe. And in my painting, you'll see there's a peace pipe there. One of the significance, well, there's two significant things of that. One is it's a peace pipe. So it was about coming together in peace and collaborating peacefully. The other cool thing to me is that particular tool was made by both the men and the women together. So there was a portion of it that the men were responsible for and a portion that the women were responsible for. I think that's really cool. So it was something that they created together, and it also was about coming into harmony and peace. So that was one of the rituals that she talked about with them. The other thing that I find really significant in her story is that when she leaves them with all these new rituals to use and honor and connect them with that spiritual part of themselves, when she leaves, she turns into a buffalo or a bison, and she turns into different colors of buffalo, bison. That's why I have it as painted different colors, but ends up as a white buffalo. And the white buffalo is seen as a symbol of prosperity, abundance, and the fact that we are always cared for and provided for, because after she turns into the white buffalo, and then she eventually turns back into herself and kind of disappears into the ethers. After that occurs, the Lakota tribe sees all of the bison, buffalo, however you want to call it, and they are provided for, which was, one of their major ways of having not just food, but also clothing for colder months and things to make their housing out of, and many other tools I'm sure that they made with the parts. So one of the reasons why I'm talking about this cool legend is because one of the ways for me personally, and again, you're all going to have your different ways, and I'll talk about others too. One of the ways that we can connect with that intuition, spirit part of ourself is through guides that we connect with. And that's going to be different depending on our background, our cultures, our just things that interest us and draw us. I do have part of my heritage is Native American. We're not Lakota. We're Muskogee or Creek, which is from lower Georgia, Alabama. My family is from Alabama. And that's where some of our ancestors are from. And I also have other parts of my heritage as well, but that's one of them for me. And when I was in my adult years, I really, really, really connected with the Native American part of myself, began to explore it more. And one of the ways that I personally listen within and get cues and symbols is also through nature. And you'll hear me say a lot that we are nature, like we're part of nature. Humans are not separate from nature. And so when we start to pay attention to nature, we can be inspired. We can also feel ourselves calm a lot of times. And for me, I get a lot of my messages that way. And for me, I was really, really, really interested for many years in White Buffalo Calf Woman and some of those lessons that she taught to the Lakotas. And I feel like it's a really powerful lesson about balance for us with our male and female sides, but also about balance for us as men and women together, right? Or boys and girls. So she's a guide for me. But I grew up in a Christian church, and that was our religious upbringing. It's what my parents have followed, my family. So another guide for me is Jesus. I love the teachings of Jesus. I have so many different Bible verses that I connect with. I even quoted one the other day for you all, which is not Jesus, I believe it was maybe an Old Testament statement, but that's another guide for me. Other people might call it Holy Spirit. Someone else from a different background is going to have a different way that they connect with the spiritual and the intuitive part of ourselves. So everyone has a spiritual part. Everyone has that part within that talks to us. How you interpret that is going to be very different. So my way is not going to be your way, but there may be some things in it that resonate for you. I think the important point is again, taking the time to listen and have that piece of you rise up. That comes by being intentional. And when we're creating new neural pathways by choosing to be more mindful, what I think you might notice is the physical part of yourself. So remember, neural pathways are physical, right? The physical part of yourself, you have a nervous system, right? And for so many of us, especially American culture, we function on very high stress levels many times, and that runs our nervous system pretty hard. So being able to give ourselves the chance to remember and experience what it feels like to settle down in the nervous system, okay? To engage the parasympathetic nervous system, then we are going to feel what it feels like to calm down a notch. And a lot of times we're going to be much more ready then to listen to those voices that we have within, to listen to the spiritual guidance that's there for us. So again, how you do that is totally your choice. You'll see me talk a lot about totems and things like that because I get messages in everything. And I think that that's one of the cool things to me about the Native American cultures is if you look into some of that, they saw God or spirit in everything. So that was one of the ways that they honored animals and birds and trees. I mean, they really saw that God was in everything. So that's kind of how I feel is you see it when I post pictures. You know, I can find a heart in my coffee cup. I find hearts in leaves. These are just ways that I am reminded that I am guided and loved and cared for. And you're going to have your symbols that you get. One of my friends has an arrow that she gets that reminds her, like, be on the right path. And she'll see arrows in nature. So it might be fun to start looking for what your symbols are. Okay, last bit of today. We are also going to talk about that energy self a little bit. And I'm going to give you a tool for helping to strengthen our boundaries energetically. Okay, so we had the outer energy egg, and then we had the inner aura. And like I was saying the other day, we have these little, the way I see it at least, it's almost like little energy hairs that come out from our body and create this outer egg. And we walk around in this structure, whether you can see it or not, throughout our day. When we learn how to simply take care of the energy egg, and I'm going to give you a really simple and kind of funny exercise to do that today, you may find that you feel a little bit stronger physically as well. Or you might feel inspired to have better boundaries, even verbally with people or emotionally with people. So remember, if I take care of myself in one area, I'm going to feel it in all the areas because everything's connected. So wherever you feel guided to start with this is the place for you to start. So as a reminder, when I don't care for the energy body, okay, what starts to happen is those little hairs coming off of me start to get all saggy, right? Or maybe they get all tangled up and I end up with this hole. When that happens, that's when I think that a lot of times we feel that extra weight on us from other situations or people, or maybe we start trying to take care of a situation for another person, but they're not interested in how we might see that it could be solved, right? There's lots of ways that we may start to feel our energy system being compromised. And another reason why I brought this painting out here today is because you see I have this rainbow around white buffalo calf woman that's kind of coming off of her field. That's how I see the intact energy system, is this beautiful rainbow of colors. And if anybody's seen a picture of the chakras, you will have seen that we usually draw them like circles or wheels because the word chakra in Sanskrit actually just means wheel. That's like the base meaning of it. And they do spin, okay? And they move energy through our energetic body, but also that contributes to the functioning of our physical body as well, because it's part of your body. It's part of your physical body. And again, we could go into long detail on the chakras, but we're not going to today. We'll save that for a whole workshop one time. If you've ever gone to acupuncture or had acupressure or reflexology, they also work with a chakra system, but usually Oriental medicine talks about it as meridians. And yes, you may be getting needles or feeling a pressure on a certain spot. However, it's coordinated with other things in your body. And if you've ever had that done, you notice that you can have a physical release even by just, like for me, I know when I have sinus issues, I'll go to my acupuncturist and she'll put like a needle in by my ankle I don't know, there's meridians all over that connect with other parts of our body. So it's not just yoga that talks about this energetic system. All cultures and indigenous cultures talked about the energy system in some way, and so they might have had different names for it. So for me, I see it as this rainbow of light though around us. And when that's cared for and intact, then my physical body also functions a whole lot better. I'm able to more quickly let go of things that don't serve me anymore. And I'm better able to establish boundaries to keep myself in that emotional state of peace, joy, and contentedness, even though stressors may be going on around me or happening in front of me. As you all know, I've worked a lot over the years with people in counseling and therapy. So for me to jump into a well with them because they're having a difficult time wouldn't be of benefit to either of us. So being able to keep myself in my own space of peace, joy, and contentment while viewing or listening or supporting and encouraging another person where they are at the moment is really, really powerful. And one of the ways that I do that is this, again, you've heard silly exercises that I have, but they're simple and they're fun, so it lightens things up. This is the one that I've taught many people for years and started using about 11 years ago myself. And I was guided to imagine that energy egg. So I drew you the energy egg again, right? It's like a big bubble around us. Imagine that like a disco ball. So this is one of my favorites. And an old school disco ball, not like the ones that they have in the roller rink now. I think there's still some roller rinks open. The disco balls like what we had in the roller rink, and then even, prior to when I was born, I think, those ones with the mirrors on it. So that's what you're gonna imagine and visualize. And I would even put it around myself, like with my arms back then, okay? Like imagine myself making this disco ball around myself. Yet I could see out of it, okay, so it's somewhat invisible. And I would joke and say, I was in a particularly stressful job at the time. I would joke and say that I was rolling in my disco ball. And there was a couple other people that I had told about the disco ball, and we would all be rolling in our disco balls that day. I came up with this way of energetically kind of cocooning myself while still being able to interact and be a part of the world that I was in, because I was in a position that I wasn't ready to leave, yet there was a lot of things going on that were feeling hurtful for me and really frustrating. And in order to let go and recognize that I was not there to fix all of that and let go of the emotions that I was having around it, I needed to intentionally wake up in the morning, put my disco ball on, do my day, so I could come home feeling whole and well, and enjoy my life. And then I made a plan for an appropriate time for me to resign that position, and that's what I did. But it allowed me to not just survive, but function well and thrive in a situation that felt very challenging for me. So here's the disco ball. Normally I do it standing up, but if I stand up, you're just going to see my belly. So I'll stay seated. You would imagine yourself putting the disco ball all around you. Oh, and the reason why the mirrors are important, because sometimes it feels like people are intentionally throwing stuff at us, right? Like maybe what's going on with them. So those mirrors are kind of like slanted in different ways. Whatever is coming at you is going to just bounce right off, and I just imagine it going off into the stars. The stars are very, very hot. They're just going to burn it up and use the energy. So I just imagine those things going off. I'm not sending it back to the other person if it's coming from a person or the news or whatever it is that you're viewing. And I'm not allowing it to come into my field. And then I'm very clear at that point that I'm choosing peace, I'm choosing joy, I'm choosing to be compassionate, I'm choosing to be supportive. I really like the word supportive. It's something I've been using a lot lately. You know, how can I support people? I can't support people if I'm a puddle on the ground. So there may be days like that for you, where maybe it's not your day to be the support to someone else. I'm clear on that myself too, and I even took yesterday, I wasn't a puddle by the way yesterday, but I took yesterday to just enjoy my family and work outdoors and do things that nourish me, so that today I can be back connected online with all the things that I'm doing right now and be the support that I want to be for people while still maintaining support for myself. And so you're creating an energetic boundary. You're rolling around in your disco ball. You're still interacting. You're not cutting yourself off from people. But I think in that space, it also allows you to really connect and listen to what is my true self, my spiritual guides, my voice within, my God speaking within. What is that telling me is best for me right now? And then from that place, you've also calmed your nervous system with all these things we've been talking about. From that place, you're probably going to make a lot better choices for yourself and even those around you. Or let go of trying to fix the situation that you're seeing in front of you if it's not yours to fix. So, that was a lot of material, I think, today. Thank you for hanging with me. Oh my goodness, I just saw one of my birds that is another one of my guides fly over. So the hawk is a big one for me. Kind of a funny story real quick in the end of this, but my last name's Hawkins. It took me a long time to figure out that the hawk was my totem, so I think that's kind of funny. But it just flew over. So another little nod from the universe, from divine to me today, that we are all choosing, and here's what the hawk means to me, one of the things. We're all able to choose from a higher perspective. Hawks have clarity. You'll hear hawk eyes, right? Like I have hawk eyes, I can see things really well. There's a focus and there's a clarity when we allow ourselves to come above and look at the situation from a higher perspective. And when you choose that, you're going to be reminded by that God speaking within to see the perspective through godly eyes or through your intuitive eyes. Again, the wording's not important to me. There's so many terms for how we can see source, creator, divine. So choose what works for you and let go of the other stuff. So I hope that you enjoyed this talk, and of course it's going to be up on video later if you want to look at it again, on ways to connect to your intuitive self, that spiritual part of you and your true self, and also to protect and boundary yourself energetically so you can care for your whole entire system even better. May you have a beautiful, mindful day. Bye. See you next time.